Hello, and welcome back for another episode of Let's Talk About It. Today, we're going to be talking about how bad actors are using AI to modernize phishing techniques. Because I've been thinking a lot about what kind of alerts you guys are getting in the SOC and whether those are users actually reporting suspicious emails or just unauthorized access attempts or suspicious outbound network traffic. I think a lot of those potentially have to do with phishing alerts or phishing scams. And there is so much nuance when it comes to phishing and modern day email security. And so, to talk about that on today's episode, Curtis Goddard and Brad Farris are here from Checkpoint Avanan to tell us a little bit more about email security, phishing scams, and best practices to maximize that email security posture. So, without further ado, let's get into the show. So, welcome to the show. Thank you guys so much for coming.
Thank you, Amy.
Brad, could you please introduce yourself and what you do at Checkpoint Avanan?
Yeah, thanks, Amy. So my name is Brad Farris. I'm the manager of security engineering for our email security team that works exclusively with our MSSP partners.
Yep. So I'm actually one of the original Avanan employees hired under the VP of Channel to figure out MSP and help launch the multi-tenant portal and stuff like that. And now I find myself working with strategic accounts, D3 being one of them, but also our strategic MSSPs and our MSPs.
Amazing. Okay, so I have so many questions about phishing. But first is like,
From the right place.
what is happening with phishing today? Because, let's say like t 2005, phishing is like some random emails from like Arabian princes who are like, "Hey, I want to talk to you about this thing. I need some money for this, whatever," right? But when it comes to B2B, when it comes to AI, deep fakes, all of these things, it's getting more and more advanced, and it's scary. And people are more and more regularly falling for phishing attempts, which is why we see so much of that in the SOC. So, can you tell me a little bit more about what phishing looks like today?
Yeah, sure. So phishing has, to your point, advanced to new levels, and especially here in the last few years with generative AI, large language model AI, builds that you can create and design attacks. We've seen, threat actors who want to target accounts go as far as pulling MX records to see what security solutions are out there and potentially in front from a secure email gateway standpoint. A/B testing threats on their own before launching actual threats. And the attackers are winning. And it's scary, to be honest with you. But years ago, a part of the Avanan, now Checkpoint email security story, was how to apply AI and machine learning kind of as a thesis to security and where would it have the biggest impact. And through our journey and growing as a company, going from just looking at SaaS applications in general and how to potentially protect those to now the primary focus being email because it's still a problem. And funny enough, early on, 10 years ago, we started 2 years before anybody else in this space. We really focused on that aspect of how could we make this better and our iterations through the world. And that's where we are today.
Yeah, it's very interesting because I think we often think about AI from a security standpoint for our tooling and how we can be better. But in the same vein, AI is definitely being leveraged by hackers for the same kinds of things. And it's interesting to think about like hacking organizations and how they are doing these things like A/B testing and red team, blue teaming, maybe, and like all of these things that real security orgs are doing. It's just they're working on the opposite side. So scary.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we're seeing it like we always call it the democratization of attacks and being able to like the call centers now like that they have it's like a customer service interaction with folks launching email attacks, from their home in their underwear, right? Like and then now what we see with, then you see and hear in the news the state-sponsored attacks and how intricate and deep they are, and how much goes into that. But where we also find a blind spot is kind of that the advanced threat actors who don't make the news and stay under the radar, but are more advanced than just the democratized kind of folks. And that kind of quiet middle kind of being where most of the damage could really be done.
Mm.
And so I think, and as we explore the solution in today's conversation, you're going to see how having superior AI, which was kind of what led us down this track to compete with the folks that we've competed with, how that's helped us and how that's kept people more secure. And being in such a competitive space with all these different email security providers that are out there, how we've been able to make a name for ourselves and some of the cool patents that we've done to really build a better mousetrap, in better words.
Yeah. Can you say more about the level of sophistication that's happening with these, like, I don't know, mid-tier attacks?
Yes, so I'll make a few comments, but then I want Brad to chime in. So, a couple of the things that are popping up that really are scary is when they used like the Greek alphabet in domain impersonations, and to see that Microsoft isn't able to catch the difference between a Greek A and a regular A. We see things that, from an anomalies perspective, where it's very straightforward that the account has been compromised and that they've jumped in and then created mail rules. And then those mail rules like delete all. And it's like, of course, that's a threat actor. Who would do that in a normal kind of day-to-day email operation? And then
Yeah.
why aren't we using our own AI to analyze that and stop those threats, in the middle of a kind of an IR? And so, Brad, is what other things kind of come to mind, that stuff that you've seen that's just it's crazy.
Yeah, so we describe it as business email compromise 3.0. That would apply to uh, a lot of the general wire fraud attempts, the gift card frauds, and what Curtis had mentioned, legitimate accounts that have already been compromised, whether it be in a previous phishing attempt or whether it be an inside job where these threat actors are using legitimate accounts, legitimate domains, and emails and user accounts to compromise the supply chain. And they're using platforms like SharePoint and Adobe to host these files that in many cases are involving multiple redirects, and it's very hard to detect because there's nothing that is obvious or would be a red flag because these are all legitimate platforms that we all use in our day-to-day business and productivity. So I think it all started, when ChatGTP was released. People started playing around with it to see what it could do. Oh, draft an email for me. Okay. Well, then the threat actors get a hold of it, and they're advanced when it comes to exploiting technology. So they're figuring out how to draft emails that are very convincing, where before it may have been a manual effort.
Spelling
They're
mistakes
also
everywhere.
spelling mistakes, just formatting of text and the language that's being used, as Curtis mentioned, could be dead giveaways, but the technology's enabled them to get a lot better at what they do, to the extent where now, if you want to phish somebody or a large group of people, you can go subscribe to a phishing toolkit. Costs about
Yeah.
$500 a month. And that gives you access to a complete phishing tool set to set up, stage, and execute your attack.
What?
So I mean, these threat actors, it's not a lone hacker in a hoodie like
Yeah.
many threat actors are portrayed in some of the marketing material out there. These are sophisticated organizations in some cases that are looking for monetary gain or some sort of takeaway from this type of activity. And in many cases, it's profitable because they're setting themselves up as organizations or corporations, just like our companies are set up. And they're multiple levels of people and different organizational units, and everyone's
Yeah.
got their own tasks they got to carry out. So
They've got
it can be
employees, they've got HR. They have
they've got everything, right? They're just doing bad things. And where that's where the red team, blue team aspect comes into it, because whatever you could think of, they're probably already doing. And it's just a matter of leveraging the same technology to provide a better defense to their offense.
Has AI influenced the volume of phishing attacks in general?
Absolutely. Yes. In addition to the sophisticated BEC attempts, we see just as many in terms of volume coming from some email hosting platforms that are in general use, like Gmail, is one of them. You name it
Hmm.
globally. There's email services like that are free email services that can be used for personal use or testing, but these threat actors are using them as a launch pad for their phishing attempts. So yes, in terms of volume, they're staging these to scale, just like any business would in terms of like a marketing campaign, right? You
Yeah.
want to reach as many customers or potential prospects as you can. That's something that they're definitely trying to do, especially when it comes to what's out there in the dark web
Hmm.
and the credentials that have already been compromised from a previous data breach. They're running through lists of email
Yeah.
addresses and passwords. And if you don't have two-factor authentication set up, it's a pretty good chance that they're going to be getting access to your cloud tenancy. Even with two-factor authentication, it's still possible with some of the token theft
Yeah.
attacks that we've seen recently.
For sure. And I asked that question because of the volume of alerts that are coming through on the other side, which has also increased, especially the phishing alerts. And SOC teams are so overwhelmed with the amount of phishing alerts coming in because
Mhm.
every single thing, even some of the lower priority stuff, obviously like is going to flow through and you're going to get alerted about it. And so it's like interesting to think about it from the opposite side on what they're doing. And I'm sure that they're using just like the most advanced, crazy spray and pray methods, and they could send hundreds of thousands of emails to people in seconds. So it's quite terrifying to think about that.
Spray and pray is exactly it. It's a situation where they're using the technology to propagate their attacks, but also making them unique in their own ways. So it's not coming from a single server IP or a single domain or user. They're getting very intelligent with these attacks and making it very difficult to catch if you think about how email security came about, which is allow and block list rules, right?
Yeah.
If you get an email
Reputation.
from somebody, periodically throughout the week, you don't want to get that email anymore. You can add a block rule for that person's email address or their domain. But what if it comes from another domain? It's probably going to come through if you're looking at it in a very basic way. So that's where it's important to have, again, the AI machine learning technology at play there when it comes to defenses for protecting against those threats in the first place and really clearing up a lot of that noise from the sheer volume of it when it comes to phishing messages that are coming through and the alerts that the IT teams are getting and the security teams are getting as a result.
Yeah. And I think everybody is not a stranger to the concept of getting a phishing attempt and having and paying out like an a an accounts payable invoice and it's a fake one and $100,000 is gone in a second, or you get you're trying to log into a system and you approve your single sign-on and it's not real. So it's like everybody has been through this at some point, or has a coworker who has been through this. Like it's a very common thing to do because these attacks are so sophisticated and it gets to the best of us even when we work in cybersecurity or have this awareness. It's like the more sophisticated that it gets, the more scared that we all become, the more that we need these systems, which actually brings me then into the point of what do we do about it?
That is
That's
the
right.
question.
Yeah.
And so that's honestly, I'll tell a little bit of the origin story and then I want Brad to jump in. So when we were looking back years ago, and just noticing from their own professional experiences with Gil and Roy, why is phishing still a problem? And then going out and raising money as a startup, being like, we're going to solve this problem. And then investors look at you like, well, what if Mindcast and Proofpoint wake up tomorrow and just start doing what you're doing? And that was a threat. But what's crazy is over the last 10 years, they haven't.
Mm,
And when you don't, and you don't improve at a rapid pace, at the pace of what the threat actors are doing and working, and you don't have that focus on product development and have an aggressive product roadmap, and you're not aggressive with updating and training your AI engines, you're going to get this. And so when we came out and we started addressing these problems with AI, and then as it's iterated from just plain kind of ML kind of based processes to Gen AI and LLM processes, and as it's continued to evolve, if you're not staying on the leading edge, like you're falling behind like every day. And it's mind numbing to try to wrap your head around. Wouldn't you think that competitors of us would have, for instance, solved the QR phishing link issue like straight away? And how did 7 years ago the first QR batch of attacks go out? How did our team go, hey, we need to solve this problem? And then it come back around and come to find out, Proofpoint, Mimecast, all these names and players in the space still didn't solve the issue. And that's just a link defense.
hmm
Like, think about threat detection engines. And so, what I think is really beautiful about the D3 Avanan checkpoint story is how we're advancing on that side and how we are giving you better quality alerts, right? And are more accurate with what we're doing.
Right.
And efficacy being kind of was always the key focus of our solution. And that's really how we were designed, kind of efficacy out. And where we're designing features and add-ons today that then now compete with what you expect in a email security thing. For instance, archiving. We launched an archiving product after we've nailed down efficacy, whereas legacy competitors started off with just kind of reputation-based stuff, allow and block-based stuff, realized that the threats have advanced, and archiving was kind of a need based off of if you got your mail system compromised and all that you could then restore mail and kind of fight back that way
hmm
by like not having the big service outage and things like that. And so just us just completely thinking about it differently and efficacy out was just I think really answers your question as to like what do we do about it? And then obviously the rise, like we're in such a competitive space. How did we come out of nowhere when we have $1 billion+ players in this space that we're competing against? It's because we started with efficacy. And any conscientious buyer who goes through their process and realizes that there is a core issue here and they need to solve a problem and perhaps they were breached and things like that, that's how they're running into us. And they're running
Right.
to us in their own evaluation that way.
Okay, I have maybe like a silly question, but because we are a SOAR platform and an AI SOC platform, and we are taking the threat intelligence and all of the data from other tooling and just automating things, right? We don't have any of the intelligence. We're not providing that intelligence, but specifically for the emails things. How do you know? Like, how does your technology know what email threats it needs to be looking for?
Yeah,
Brad, I
so
think
I'll
this
yeah,
is your
I'll
time.
take that one, and if
Okay.
y'all don't mind,
You can get
do a
very
little screen
specific.
share here.
Okay, yes.
So, not to get too deep in the weeds, but this is our dashboard for our email and collaboration security product. We say collaboration because when you're thinking cloud tenancies like Microsoft 365, like Google, typically you're subscribing to or getting a license for email use as well as some of the other cloud applications like cloud storage and Teams and other messaging apps that we support natively in this tool. But to get to your question, Amy, how do we provide that intelligence? We take a layered approach. So not only are we complementary to the Microsoft and Google default security, we also have multiple layers of analysis in different security engines, and that's really what each of these tiles represents. So, of course, we're protecting against spam and phishing emails. I mentioned business email compromise protection before.
Mm-hmm.
Pulling from the login activity to these cloud tenancies. You can see that in the map here. We're looking at all of the successful and failed login events. So I like to do this whenever we're working with an MSP or MSSP on a trial, whether it's their internal tenant or one of their clients that they're trialing this out on. And you can see where these users are attempting to log into. So it's not always going to be within country or where you think it is. Again, if you're on a list out there somewhere, it may be somewhere halfway across the world. These threat actors are using VPNs to try to mask their locations. So we're taking this information into account when we're making our verdicts so that we have high confidence in the verdicts that we are making. So in addition, we've got our anti-malware engine. So this is responsible for scanning the files that are coming in over email, as well as being shared on these cloud platforms. So if you think about, first thing that happens if you want to share a file with somebody over Teams, you got to upload it to the cloud somewhere. So we're scanning these files as they're being uploaded, doing CPU level sandboxing, obviously reputation-based analysis to see if it's a malware strain or ransomware payload that we already know about. But if not, we can execute it in a virtual environment and show what would happen if a 0-day came through, and if a user clicked on it, what would that look like on their desktop? So this is an example of a full threat report that's pulling from Checkpoint's threat cloud data lake, which is essentially threat telemetry that's coming from every Checkpoint product and customer network that we're protecting. The metadata around the analysis and the detections that we're making, it's feeding into this thing. And this is what gives us the best results, especially against those 0 days.
Is this Office 2013?
There's different, there's different operating systems, because if they're using a toolkit that was designed to exploit an older operating system that may still have unpatched vulnerabilities, well, that's what it's designed for.
Yeah.
And they're out there, right? Not everybody's on, the latest and greatest Windows versions with all the updates and endpoint protection and whatnot. So yeah, it can affect these systems in different ways depending on that customer's environment. But we're going really deep there with the analysis. We've
Yeah.
also got some data leak prevention. So we're understanding the content and the context of not only the email and the body of the email, but we're able to OCR attachments and images to be able to make DLP protection detections as well, and prevent that sensitive data from coming into or leaving the organization.
Mm-hmm.
But to really to kind of get to the point here for why we make the best detections and how we do it is to drill down into an example of a phishing email. So in this case, this is a demo environment that's set up in M365, and we've got the Microsoft verdicts right on top of our Checkpoint verdicts. So you can see a lot of cases where something may be allow listed, or there's an exception in Microsoft, or they see it as clean or spam, and we actually see it as a phishing or malware email. So we don't always agree, but when you're talking email security, static lists aren't going to provide you the best protection against these polymorphic types of attacks that are enabled by the AI tool sets. But based on analysis of over 300 elements of every single message that come through, we can make high confidence detections, usually with multiple reasons here. So we're checking for DKIM, SPF, DMARC alignment, separate from Microsoft's. We've got multiple reasons that we think this is a phishing email. So we've got some suspicious looking text, links to low traffic websites, and low sender reputation.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's
So
helpful to understand like what you guys are looking for and what qualifies as a positive phishing attack, because of the overwhelming volume that SOC teams face with the phishing attack alerts. It's interesting and helpful to see a better breakdown of what that actually looks like.
We're an
that's right.
anti-secret sauce company, and that was always been our mantra because we want to empower folks in the SOC and our CISOs to really be able to dive into the analysis. Anyway, as Brad was scrolling down here, you're going to see the advantage that a SOC team member could have by seeing that deeper level of data. and seeing understanding why the machine made the determination and doing that in a easy to use visual way.
Right. Okay, cool. Yeah, because basically then when we get an alert from either directly from Checkpoint Avanan or maybe it's the SIEM that's giving the alert, then D3 will flow that through our pre-processing playbook to further determine whether it's a false positive or not by correlating it with your other data from your other data sources like your CrowdStrike, your Microsoft, or whatever. And then if it is a true positive, you'll be able to once again utilize that AI with the security and AI and either create a playbook that is very specific to that alert or to do some more investigation and remediation around that alert and see what's going on with that. So it's interesting to see how that will flow through between Checkpoint, Avanan, and D3 and getting to the end goal, which is going to be securing the device and the threat, and whether that looks like using D3 to isolate the device from the network or whatever it might be. There's always options, and we have different API connections and whatnot that will help people to be accomplishing that goal. So, yeah. All right.
So,
Great. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on to the show. I really appreciate it. If we want to find you and your work online, where can we look? Maybe we'll start with Brad.
Yeah, so I can be found easily at any MSSP event. If you look up, you can usually find me, but also on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect with me and send an invite. Be more than happy to have a chat with you.
And Curtis?
yeah, absolutely. LinkedIn is the best professional application for social media, that's for sure. It's Curtis Goddard, and then I've added a senior there to kind of differentiate myself from the thousands of other Curtis Goddards that are out there. That's going to be a great spot to reach out. And then also, obviously, also hit up our website. Even if you purchase through a distributor or other things like that, or this podcast or D3 has influenced let's say you need the better efficacy and better alerts, like hit our website up, have a chat with us, even if we redirect you out through another channel purchasing process. It's good to have that and form that relationship with us because we do a lot for our partners that doesn't always make it out to the airwaves like this. So we really appreciate your time today, Amy, and kind of highlighting what we can do to help.
Thanks so much, guys.